English Campfire.
So I want you to think about the cognitive dissonance of walking into a room where every single person is a complete stranger to you.
Oh, yeah. The absolute worst feeling.
Right. But the kicker is they all seem to implicitly know one another already. Like, you're the only outsider.
It's terrifying, truly.
It really is. Because your brain's threat detection system, it basically processes that social isolation with the exact same neurological urgency as, like, literal physical danger.
Oh, absolutely.
Your heart rate goes up, your peripheral vision narrows, and you just have this overriding instinct to locate the nearest exit.
Yeah, we call that a severe novelty penalty. I mean, evolutionarily speaking, being the unconnected outsider in a cohesive tribe, that was a legitimate survival risk.
Because if you're alone, you don't survive.
Exactly. And the physical sensation of that dread, it really hasn't changed in thousands of years. Even if, the modern context is entirely benign, like a summer camp.
Which is the perfect entry point for today's deep dive, actually.
Yeah.
We're looking at this really engaging source material. It's a narrative about a 12-year-old girl named Mia. And she's arriving at Camp Ridgeline for a 2-week summer session. But we're looking at this through a dual lens today.
Right, because it's not just a cute story.
Exactly. First, we're tracking Mia's psychological progression from, like, absolute social terror to profound connection.
Yeah.
But second, and I think more importantly for us, we are unpacking the linguistic archaeology of her journey.
Idioms.
Yes. The sources highlight 15 specific idioms used to describe these social dynamics. And these are phrases we just casually drop every single day,
Oh, completely. Without ever realizing that we were invoking these intense survival tactics of, like, sailors and soldiers and ancient laborers.
It's so wild, the language we use to casually describe, say, a corporate meeting or an awkward first date.
It's entirely built on a foundation of literal physical risk. When you strip away the, modern dilution of these phrases, you uncover this hidden map of how human beings actually negotiate trust and vulnerability.
So let's get into it. Let's start with Mia's arrival. It's 9:30 a.m. She steps out of this van, she's clutching her duffel bag like a shield, and she's immediately confronted by a sea of 100 kids.
All already forming those loud, chaotic groups.
Right, the worst-case scenario. So the counselor points her toward cabin 5. And driven purely by that ancient threat detection system we just talked about, Mia walks in and immediately claims the bunk closest to the door.
A classic escape strategy.
Literally. The text explicitly frames it that way. She is mapping her retreat before she even unzips her bag.
Because her internal state is entirely defensive at this point.
Yeah.
And that illusion of being the outsider, it just compounds that defense because, when you lack social context, your brain just assumes everyone else has it.
Like they're all best friends already.
Exactly. Any two kids just saying a casual, hey, look like lifelong friends to the isolated observer, which just intensifies that awful feeling of being an anomaly.
So the intervention here actually comes from the top bunk. There's a girl named Jaylen up there reading a novel. She looks down, and she just validates Mia's tactical bunk choice.
It's huge.
It is. And then Jaylen volunteers this crucial piece of information. She says, you seem nervous. I'm nervous, too, for what it's worth.
And there it is.
Yep, this is our first linguistic anchor from the text. Jaylen's admission manages to break the ice.
Which is such a common phrase. I mean, we have icebreaker games, icebreaker questions at corporate retreats.
But the mechanical reality of an actual icebreaker ship is, like, far more violent than a corporate trust fall.
Oh, it's incredibly violent. The physical metaphor is just so precise here. So an icebreaker is a specialized vessel, right? It's designed to use its sheer mass and immense engine power to literally drive its hull up onto thick, frozen water.
It doesn't cut through it.
No, it crushes the ice beneath its own weight. Yeah, and the whole purpose of this violent act is to carve a navigable channel so that the more fragile standard ships can safely pass through the wake.
I find the energetic cost of that just fascinating. Like, the icebreaker ship takes the structural damage, it burns all the extra fuel, it absorbs the massive kinetic friction of that frozen environment so the ships behind it don't have to.
That is a perfect way to look at it.
Right.
Yeah.
So when Jaylen admits she is nervous, she is absorbing the social friction. She's taking the psychological hit of being vulnerable first.
Clearing the channel.
Exactly. Clearing a navigable channel for Mia to finally drop her own defensive posture.
And the text actually notes that Mia's anxiety drops by about 15% in that exact moment. The ice is broken, meaning The environment is no longer entirely static. Movement is suddenly possible.
Because of Jaylen's work.
Right, that initial expenditure of psychological capital by Jaylen allows the rest of the group to actually form.
Which leads us straight into day 2. The social circle expands pretty naturally. We meet Sofia, who is this girl who operates with extreme verbal economy. Like, she only speaks when she has a definitive point to make.
I love that character detail.
That's great. And then from the boys' cabin next door, we meet Dev. And Dev is the complete opposite. He possesses this relentless, highly entertaining verbal energy.
The talker.
Yeah, big time. And the sources describe these four, Mia, Jaylen, Sofia, and Dev, as instantly managing to hit it off.
Hitting it off.
Yeah, which implies this frictionless, almost magnetic alignment of personalities, right? But I kind of want to push back on that.
Oh, I agree completely. The common perception of hitting it off is that it's just this spontaneous weather event. Like, it either rains or it doesn't. You either hit it off or you don't.
Just blind luck.
Exactly. But if we actually trace the causal chain of this narrative, that frictionless connection is a total illusion.
It's entirely dependent on the infrastructure Jaylen built on day 1. We treat hitting it off like the universe just threw the right temperaments together. But without Jaylen acting as the icebreaker, establishing that baseline of psychological safety, Dev's humor might have just been read as obnoxious by Mia.
Oh, totally.
And Sofia's quietness might have been interpreted as, I don't know, hostile judgment.
Right. The safety is what allows their authentic personalities to emerge without being perceived as threats. It's the invisible work of relationship building that creates the conditions for that quote-unquote effortless connection.
Invisible work. I love that. And that actually brings us to the archery range on day 2, which highlights another deeply misunderstood idiom.
The archery scene is just a masterclass in adolescent vulnerability.
It really is. So Mia has never held a bow in her life. She's standing there 15 meters from the target, and she is hyper aware of all her new peers watching her.
The pressure is immense.
So she lets the arrow fly, and it goes wildly off course, like sideways. It is a highly public failure in an environment where she is desperately trying to project competence.
Which is agonizing at 12 years old.
Agonizing. But Dev steps in. He completely drops his comedic persona, and he just tells her she'll get the hang of it.
Get the hang of it. We use that phrase all the time to just sort of dismiss the frustration of learning something new. But it actually describes a very specific neurological transition.
The shift from conscious effort to automaticity.
Precisely. So when you first attempt a complex physical task like archery or, I don't know, driving a manual transmission car or learning new software at work, your prefrontal cortex is heavily engaged.
You're just thinking about every single step.
Yes. You are consciously, painstakingly managing every micro movement. It is exhausting. And frankly, you are terrible at it.
Because your cognitive load is just maxed out. You're overthinking the angle of your elbow, the tension in your fingers.
Exactly. But as you practice, the brain transfers those motor patterns to the basal ganglia.
And that handles the automatic subconscious routines, right?
Right. And the magical aspect of getting the hang of it is that you literally cannot feel this transfer happening.
It's invisible.
Completely. You fail, and then suddenly the cognitive load just vanishes. The mechanics operate smoothly in the background. So Dev isn't just offering like empty encouragement here.
He's identifying the process.
Right. He's identifying that her current highly visible struggle is the mandatory neurological prerequisite for competence.
And what's brilliant about the narrative structure here is that the psychological progression of the whole group kind of mirrors that exact neurological process.
How do you mean?
Well, they're getting the hang of each other. Like the awkward, conscious effort of early socialization is slowly transferring into this automatic, comfortable rhythm.
Oh, that's a great point. They're building the muscle memory of trust.
Exactly.
Which is critical because on day 5, the narrative shifts. The camp counselors introduce a stress test.
Yeah, things get real. The environment shifts from voluntary socialization to a mandatory, high-stakes crucible. It's the teen challenge.
The shelter challenge.
Right. The counselors give them 3 hours to build a structure out of natural materials capable of withstanding an incoming rainstorm,
Right.
which is already stressful.
Very.
But to complicate the variables, the counselors drop a 5th member into their carefully balanced 4-person dynamic. A boy named Marcus.
It's a wild card.
A total wild card. No one knows him. He lacks any social context or established rapport with the group.
And normally, the introduction of a stranger during a resource-constrained crisis, like beating a storm, that usually triggers a regression to defensive postures.
Everyone guards their territory.
Right. But Mia actively overrides that instinct. She decides to give Marcus the benefit of the doubt.
Yes, the benefit of the doubt. Let's look at this through the lens of like an emotional credit score.
Okay, I like this.
Think about your own relationships. If you have a decade-long friendship with someone, they have a prime emotional credit score with you.
Yeah.
If they fail to deliver on a promise, your brain automatically assumes a benign external cause, like, oh, bad traffic, or a family emergency.
Because their historical data supports trust.
Exactly. But Marcus has zero data. He has no credit history with them.
So giving the benefit of the doubt requires a profound cognitive leap. It's the active decision to assume positive intent in a total vacuum of evidence.
You're extending a loan.
You are financing their integration into the group with a totally unsecured loan of trust.
Which is an investment strategy that carries immense social risk for Mia,
Yeah.
but it yields immediate dividends. Because it turns out, in this specific instance, Marcus possesses this encyclopedic knowledge of not tying.
Which is pretty handy for a shelter.
It's the ultimate tactical asset when you're building a waterproof shelter out of branches.
Right. So the generosity of trust unlocks the specific competence required for the group's survival.
Yeah.
And the reality of their shared struggle culminates in this brilliant piece of dialogue from Sofia.
Oh, I know the one.
As the sky darkens and the scale of their architectural incompetence becomes painfully clear, she looks at the group and just states, "We're all in the same boat." I just love the poetic irony of this scene so much. They are standing in the middle of a forest, attempting to build a wooden shelter on land to survive a rainstorm, and they default to a maritime survival metaphor.
It's perfect. But if we look past the obvious water connection, the power of being in the same boat isn't just about sharing a location, it's about the brutal equalization of risk.
Expand on that. Equalization of risk.
Well, when a small vessel is caught in a squall at sea, the ocean does not respect social hierarchy.
Right.
It does not care who is wealthy, who is popular, or who possesses the most theoretical knowledge of sailing. If the hull breaches, everyone goes down.
Wow, yeah.
The phrase strips away all ego and individual posturing. By invoking it, Sofia is officially declaring that their individual survival is entirely dependent on their collective cohesion.
The shared threat binds them, and the sources note that it actually works. Their not heavy, structurally dubious shelter manages to hold for 4 solid hours against the storm.
They survive the crucible. They do. And surviving a shared trauma, even a low-stakes one like a summer camp rainstorm, it just dramatically accelerates interpersonal intimacy.
It completely removes the necessity for performative armor.
Which provides the foundational architecture for the emotional climax of our story. It is the final night of the 2-week session. We've got the classic campfire setting.
The atmosphere is heavy.
So heavy. It's the impending dissolution of their temporary society, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Dev, who has spent the entire fortnight operating as the group's reliable engine of humor and distraction, he suddenly drops the persona.
Which is a significant behavioral pivot for him.
Huge. He looks at the group and says, "I'm going to be honest, I didn't want to come to camp this summer." And the narrative notes that Dev decides to go out on a limb.
To go out on a limb,
Right.
think about the last time you were in, say, a high-stakes strategy meeting at work. The dominant executive opinion is moving in one direction, and you possess a contrary insight that you know is going to be unpopular.
You feel it in your chest before you speak.
Exactly. The moment before you speak, you are experiencing the exact physics of this idiom. Because the mechanical properties of a tree branch dictate that the closer you are to the trunk, the safer you are.
And the trunk represents the consensus.
Yes, the socially acceptable consensus. When you walk out onto the narrowing edge of the branch, the structural integrity diminishes as your exposure increases.
So Dev is out there.
Dev is testing the tensile strength of a 2-week-old friendship network. He is offering a negative, vulnerable admission that runs completely counter to the expected, we had the best summer ever narrative.
And if the branch snaps, the social embarrassment is catastrophic. He's left hanging out there alone as the weird kid who didn't want to be there.
But the branch holds.
It holds. In fact, his risk triggers this amazing, immediate cascade of suppressed truth, like a domino effect. Jaylen admits she felt the same. Sofia echoes it. And Mia finally confesses that she literally cried the entire night before arriving.
What we are witnessing here is the resolution of a massive, unspoken, pluralistic ignorance.
Pluralistic ignorance. Wait, explain that term.
So for 2 weeks, each member of the group privately believed they were the only one experiencing profound dread. They just assumed everyone else was naturally well-adjusted and happy to be there.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Dev's initial risk serves as the external auditor that reveals their internal states are actually identical.
Which brings us to the realization that they're all on the same page. And we use this phrase all the time to describe, like, boardroom alignment.
Are we on the same page?
Right. But the origin implies something much deeper about theory of mind. You cannot visually confirm that someone else is comprehending the exact same sentence on the exact same page of a physical book.
Until someone reads the text out loud.
Exactly. Dev read his internal monologue out loud, and the entire group realized they were holding the identical script all along.
The cognitive relief of that alignment just cannot be overstated. It recontextualizes their entire shared history, which actually perfectly tees up the concept of the silver lining.
Yes, a silver lining. I love the visual physics of this one, because it requires a very specific set of atmospheric conditions.
You need a dark cloud.
You do. You need a massive, opaque rain cloud actively blocking the sun. And the intense backlighting from the obscured sun hits the water droplets at the very edge of the cloud, creating that brilliant, glowing perimeter.
So you literally cannot get the silver lining without the dark cloud.
The dark cloud is the mandatory prerequisite. In Mia's narrative, that intense, isolating dread of being forced to attend summer camp, that was the dark cloud.
But that shared misery was the precise gravitational force that pulled them together.
Yes. If they had all been perfectly confident, well-adjusted campers, they might have superficially mingled,
Sure, played some games.
Right, but they wouldn't have formed a survival pact. The misery necessitated the bond. The friendship is the silver lining illuminated by the initial dread.
It's beautiful, and the elegance of that realization carries Mia right into the final morning, departure day.
The vans are idling in the gravel driveway. It's 10 a.m. The 2-week social experiment is over. And Mia realizes she must finally face the music.
Which is such an interesting phrase. The contrast between the emotional tone of her scene and the historical origin of the idiom is striking.
Because facing the music sounds like, I don't know, the nervous anticipation of a Broadway audition or something.
Exactly. But in reality, it's a phrase born from severe military discipline.
Wait, really?
Yeah. When a soldier was found guilty of disgraceful conduct, they were formally drummed out of their regiment.
Oh, drunk out.
Right. They were forced to stand at rigid attention, facing the military band as it played a specific, humiliating march while their insignia was ripped from their uniform.
Oh, wow. That is bleak. It is the ultimate expression of inescapable consequence. Like, you cannot run, you cannot hide. You must stand completely still and allow the reality of your situation to just wash over you.
But the psychological brilliance of Mia's situation is the inversion of the punishment.
Because Mia isn't facing the music of a terrible mistake.
No, she is facing the inescapable reality of her own joy. She is experiencing the cognitive dissonance of realizing her initial threat detection system, that instinct to hide by the door, was entirely wrong.
She spent months dreading an experience that fundamentally improved her.
And admitting that you are wrong to be afraid is a very complex, humbling form of music to face.
It is. But because she has the maturity to face it, she makes a tactical decision regarding her departure. She actively works to avoid burning bridges.
Which is yet another idiom derived from warfare.
Right.
Specifically, the mechanics of a strategic retreat.
Right. Think about the modern equivalent. Burning a bridge today is like rage quitting a job and deliberately deleting the shared database on your way out the door.
Right. You're ensuring the relationship can never be reconstituted.
But the military application of burning a bridge isn't just about preventing the enemy from pursuing you, is it?
No, and this is the fascinating part. It is often a psychological commitment device used by a commander to prevent their own troops from retreating.
Oh man, if the bridge is ash, you have no choice but to move forward into the unknown.
Exactly. So when Mia insists on exchanging real contact information in the text notes, it's not just passive social media follows, but actionable, concrete communication channels. She is preserving the infrastructure.
She refuses to set the fire.
Right. She is ensuring that the emotional retreat back to the safety of this group remains a viable option in the future.
And speaking of preserving the connection, we have to talk about Dev's final actions.
Yeah.
Because throughout the whole narrative, Dev has aggressively marketed himself as the emotionally detached comedian.
Oh, he explicitly stated multiple times that he is fundamentally opposed to physical affection.
He said he will absolutely not be participating in any goodbye hugs.
Which is just a standard preemptive defense mechanism. If you reject the ritual of saying goodbye, you can temporarily pretend the departure isn't actually happening.
But the moment those van doors slide open, his defenses just completely collapse. He proceeds to aggressively hug every single member of the group.
He violates his own stated boundaries to provide comfort.
Yes. Linguistically, Dev is going the extra mile.
And the historical weight of this phrase transforms it from, like, a cliche about customer service into this really profound statement on voluntary sacrifice.
Right, because the context here is ancient Roman law.
Specifically, the law of impressment. So a Roman soldier occupying a conquered territory possessed the legal authority to compel any local civilian to carry his heavy military pack.
Wow.
But for exactly 1 Roman mile, it was a deeply resented, humiliating legal obligation.
So you're just walking to the market, and suddenly you are conscripted into forced labor for 1,000 paces.
Exactly. So the revolutionary teaching that spawned the idiom challenged individuals to completely subvert that power dynamic. The instruction was, when compelled to carry the pack for 1 mile, do not drop it at the legal boundary in bitter resentment.
You voluntarily carry it a second mile.
Yes.
That is so powerful because it reclaims the agency. Like the first mile is mandatory compliance under threat of violence, but the second mile, that is an act of sovereign grace.
And that's Dev. He was under no obligation to hug his friends. He had, in fact, negotiated a social contract that explicitly exempted him from it.
Right.
But recognizing the emotional weight of the departure, he voluntarily took on the discomfort. He shifted from the mandatory baseline of, like, a charitable wave
to the voluntary vulnerability of a physical embrace.
He went the extra emotional mile because the preservation of the bond superseded his need to look cool.
It is the ultimate proof of the group's cohesion.
Yeah.
And the story closes not with a question, but with a statement of fact. Sofia, looking at the infrastructure they have built over 14 days, she simply says, "See you next summer."
Not, "I hope to see you."
No. It is a definitive assertion of continuity.
She has evaluated the structural integrity of the bridges they built, and she has found them sound.
I love that.
Yeah.
When we step back and view Mia's journey in its entirety, the true value of these idioms becomes aggressively clear, I think. Like, they are not dusty linguistic artifacts to be memorized for a standardized test.
Not at all.
They are highly compressed zip files of human history.
That's exactly what they are. Every time you use one of these phrases, you are implicitly borrowing the survival data of the ancestors.
Yeah.
You are utilizing the kinetic energy of the icebreaker, the equalization of the sinking boat, the vulnerability of the fragile branch, and the discipline of the military drumout. We map the physical survival tactics of the past onto the psychological battlegrounds of the present.
We use the mechanics of ancient warfare and maritime disaster just to navigate the terrifying prospect of introducing ourselves to a stranger.
Oh,
It's incredible.
It really is.
Which leaves me with the final thought for you to carry into your week. I want you to pay attention to the idioms that slip casually out of your mouth during your next team meeting or dinner party. What specific, forgotten histories are you weaponizing to explain your internal state? And as our environment becomes increasingly abstracted-like, as we drift further and further away from literal sailing ships and physical tree limbs and marching bands, what will the architecture of tomorrow's idioms even look like? In a purely digital remote-first world, how will the next generation describe the precise, terrifying moment of finally dropping their defenses and letting someone else see their screen?